It's the True Penny Show with your host, James Truepenny.
Next up was a match where I was watching it and I'm going, oh, this is where the wheels might come off for Marcus. Tom Harajuku and Raku defeated Hyper Misao and Mifu Ashida 10 minutes 25 seconds. So if you've not watched TJPW before, Tom Harajuku is a 20-year-old wrestler playing a 4-year-old. That's her character. She screams a lot. Like a 4-year-old, she has tantrums because that's what 4-year-olds do, right? Raku has the glorious tactic of bringing a pillow to the ring to her, the most comfiest and loveliest of all pillows that her opponents suddenly want to use and have her lay down. And then as they fall asleep, she pins them. That's her thing. That's what she does. Hyper Misao, who believes she's a superhero but actually is a supervillain, and is kind of supposed to be evil but really isn't because she's rubbish at being a supervillain. Tagging with Mifu Ashida, who is a cheerleader, a retired cheer dance leader. So yeah, and as you can imagine, all of those shenanigans, because Ashida also uses the pom-poms during the matches to help her guide her kicks. I was thinking, oh, Marcus is going to hate me for this. Because it's not your thing at all. But I'm intrigued as to be the reaction. Please don't hate me. What did you think of this one, Marcus?
Wasn't necessarily my thing, to your point. But like I said, you take the with these shows, you gotta take the crookeds with the straights. Not everything is gonna be um crazy, in your face, straight up and down mad wrestling. Like I said, it's a variety show. These people on this show know who they are. It doesn't feel like, to your earlier point about, it's very much a defined company. Everybody knows their place and their roles. It doesn't feel like people are bleeding into each other character-wise or moveset or anything like that. And like you said, this particular combination of Hyper Masala and Fu,
Yeah.
or am I getting it mixed up with Raku, like you said, the Pillow Girl and Miss Pom Poms, um,
Yeah,
certainly
she
make
was
things
with the pom-poms. Pom is the one named Pom.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, obviously. So, like I said, not necessarily my speed, because a lot of times that stuff just kind of interrupts the energy of the match. Or we in
Yeah.
the middle of a high tag, and then like, oh, this is the time for a nap. Like, okay, it's, it's so, but other than that, like I said, it's fine, because this is the character portion of it.
Yeah.
What comes into play. Obviously, you're gonna have your wrestling, but this is the character portion. It also comes into play with the pacing. You kick it off, with the two singles,
Yep.
and you kind of transition into more serious stuff down the road. I thought they did that good as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. And someone posted on Blue Sky this morning, and it's absolutely true. You can't be a good comedy wrestler without being a good wrestler first, because like the whole point of matches like this is to disrupt expectations. So if you don't meet expectation to start with, you're never going to disrupt it, are you? Some of the best comedy tag teams and wrestlers I've ever seen were absolutely the best pro wrestlers. The Royal Brothers are my favorite point into existence. You go back and listen. Me and John did a Life and Times on the Royal Brothers a long time ago. And you look at those matches now, and they were just mad, absolutely off the page, crazy matches. But they understood wrestling to the nth degree, and that's the reason why it worked. And that's the reason why this stuff works, is because you absolutely believe that Hyper Misao is a superhero, because she believes that she's a superhero. So why wouldn't she be a superhero? What kind of silly talk would it be that she's not a superhero? Of course she is, because you buy into it. That's the whole point, right? The whole
yeah,
point of pro wrestling is to make you suspend belief.
to that point, real quick, I know this is briefly off topic, but to this day, still, how much, from your opinion, from your point perspective, is that still, ironically enough, not the prevailing thought when people talk about somebody like Yano?
Yeah, Yano's an interesting one because you know he's a genuine badass. He was like Japanese amateur wrestler. He was on, I think he was on the Japanese Olympic team. He's a genuine hardcore guy. You go back to um, the most violent players tag team with him and Togi Makabe. They were vicious. But Yano, I can understand people's dislike of Yano because he has kind of become a one-trick pony. But equally, if he didn't understand how wrestling works to such a degree that it just wouldn't work at all, right? It just doesn't work. And I think that's what a lot of people are finding out about Evil as well, is because Evil understood wrestling so well, that's why the House of Torture worked for a Japanese audience. Not my cup of tea, and I've moaned about it constantly. But equally, because Evil knew how wrestling worked, he could subvert it in a way that was entertaining that the fans got. Now Evil's gone, the House of Torture aren't quite so popular as they once was, if you see what I mean. They're not quite so entertaining. Now it's just dark guys doing dark things, and there's no evil laugh at the end.
Mhm.
And Yano's kind of in that same kind of point, is like it only works when he's winning, but we don't see Yano winning very often anymore. So therefore, he's just, well, what's he doing around here now? So it's difficult. Yano's no longer a main part of the show, and it's kind of like he's been eased out to an extent because he's got a front office job now. But again, he wouldn't have a front office job if he didn't understand how pro wrestling worked exceptionally well. We
Yeah,
moan about Rocky Romero as well, but equally, his understanding of professional wrestling, it means he's a perfect pick for a front office job at AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling.
yeah, and he's also like a 5'2" player,
Mm.
in some ways because he can very much do the comedy aspect, very much do the wrestling aspect. You can also put him on commentary, and then, like you said, doing stuff, behind the scenes in the business part of it as well. So you can, be really
Yeah,
valuable in that way. And I think,
yeah,
just finishing off on the comedy aspect is interesting because you talk about these women here, like, Palm and Hyper Mazal, and then look at Yano, and then now people are seeming to be tuning up to somebody like Danhausen, showing you that there are levels to the comedy aspect of this art form that do work,
yeah.
in so many different instances. Yeah.
Someone else on Blue Sky today pointed out he believed that Crazy Mike might be the greatest wrestler in the world. And I don't think he's wrong in that statement. Crazy Mike gets a Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling or a Mystery Wrestling crowd absolutely mental, off the edge of their seats, roaring and screaming for a body slam. What's greater than that? Because they believe in him. They believe he's Crazy Mike and he will do the crazy things. And when he stands up there and says, "Who wants to see a body slam?" Everybody wants to see a body slam. Of course they do. Because he's awesome, right? And he is absolutely the living definition of getting the most action out of the least effort. And that doesn't work unless you know how to be a professional wrestler to an exceptionally high level. And everybody wants to see a body slam, right? When Mike says, "Do you want to see a body slam?" How would you not want to see a body slam? Because it's Mike, and that's the way it goes. And I think people are starting to see the respect. Danhausen's another example. He wasn't really understood in AEW. And to an extent, WWE have got it. It's like he's not a great wrestler. He's not going to be a good producer of great and wonderful matches. That's not the point. He's there
Yeah.
to throw curses and do things, and he will sell you T-shirts from now until next Sunday. And by the look of things, by gum, they could do with selling some T-shirts. So yes, well
Yeah.
that's yeah, it's a skill set.
Yeah, it's also speaking like, I guess, the great divide between the goods, the greats, and the future legends. Because it's not too often you see too many people that can have a crowd eating out of their hand, and then they do the big move. But then you have people like that can have, because a lot of times nowadays it's like they can only feel like they had a crowd eating out of their hand if they doing the big move.
Yeah,
Most people, the greatest of them have the crowd eating out of their hand, and then they can do any move. A
yeah,
lot of people just can't blend that, ability of control of the crowd, and then blend it into the showmanship aspect of it, and then, get to the move. So, I think that's why, somebody like The Rock was so
mm,
good because it's like he doing it's the elbow, but it's the
yeah,
theatrics, it's the waiting, it's the all aspects of it. Like the people's
yeah,
elbow, I think is a perfect example of that. Most people, how they, and it's just the state of things now. They have to do. just all this stuff. And at most, if they get the crowd on their side, it's because they got catchy theme music now.
Yeah.
And it's not. Some people find that sweet spot early. Some people come into it in certain aspects if they're doing certain characters, and then certain people it just takes time as they get older. They in the business, but it's not too many people that consistently have stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's having the heels to react to it, because that's the other issue is heels have to show their ass, and if they're not heels, if you don't, right? You've got to. That's the job. And there are so very few heels that want to do that nowadays because they're eyeing up the babyface turn, or they're trying to be cool, and it's like, yeah, but you've got to shove your comeuppance, otherwise people won't keep watching. Doesn't have to be every week, can be every once in a while. And the absolute perfect comedy spot I ever saw, I've talked about it a lot before, I'll do it again, no doubt, in the future, is there's a match in 1973, and it's Leon Harris, Brian Glover from Barnsley, wrestling Les Kellett, right? And Brian's got a leg lock on, and Les has a leg free. So he lifts his leg up and bangs his calf into the middle of Brian's forehead. And Brian just goes, "You need that bugger all night, boy, you'll not shift me."
Already holding Kellett there. Remember, Harris is in front, 1-0.
No.
Kellett can't afford to
Hit that bucket all night long. Oh!
be too comical here now. Not until at least he gets the equal. I think his tongue was between his teeth then. Yes, it was. Vince Ward not happy. Leon Harris not happy, but everybody else quite happy about it.
They go, referee! And that's it. That's comedy wrestling perfectly done, and the perfect example. You talk to comedians and drama people, comedy works in threes. Did it twice, the third time is the fans are expecting it to happen, right? At that point, the fans know it's going to happen, and they laugh along because it's right. And it's the perfect comedy spot. And that took no effort, no bumps. No bumps. Brian was on his knees and Les was on his back. And Brian took a couple of kicks to the face, but they weren't very hard. And that's, that's how wrestling, that's perfection of wrestling. That's it, right? That's, if the heel's willing to sell for the babyface doing the bit, it's all gone. Don't hurt anyone, doesn't cost anyone, doesn't make a babyface look stupid, doesn't make a heel look bad, because heels are supposed to look bad, and that's fine. But we miss that now, I think, a lot of the time, because heels aren't always as heelish as they need to be, or are too heelish, or are, it's finding that sweet spot. MJF's a good example. He can be massively overbearing at times as well, but equally, that's kind of the point. I don't watch enough AEW to see if he drove me nuts or not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's got it, right? He gets it. The point is, I have to be awful, but I will get my comeuppance one day, because he will, and that's what makes you want to watch somebody kick his ass, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But we don't
and-
get that.
Yeah, and I think ironically enough, this is my, because I've always understood the necessity for MJF, but I haven't always liked watching him because, to your point, there was just like he can just be overbearing at times.
Yeah.
With the cursing and the innuendos and just all the MJF of it all. But I feel like as he's progressed, I feel like he's found his sweet spot now, where he feels like the mature guy that has the responsibility that he has, but he's found the sweet spot of hitting exactly what he needs to do as a heel without the overbearingness of it.
Yeah.
At this stage. Yeah.
Bobby Heenan is probably the best mainstream example of how you get over as a comedy heel, or in comedy, and use comedy to your advantage. And it was because he was willing to do stupid stuff. It's really that simple. He's willing to have, like, you can go see them. He's willing to have ball and chain matches with Jake Roberts or wherever they were in the 90s. He was willing to take ridiculous bumps off of aprons to do all sorts of things. And because Bobby understood the business, and he didn't wrestle for that long because the promoter said, "You're too good. You don't need to be a wrestler. You need to be terrible at wrestling." right? You need to be winding people up because that's your talent. And he had a much longer career than most people had because he just wound people up and he knew how to weaponize that into commentary and matchmaking and all of the things he did in pro wrestling. So there we are.